Okay, to start your rotoscope video animation, you'll need first to have a short video clip, like between 3 and 5 seconds would work. Make sure that's saved to your computer. You can upload that to your Google Drive and then download it to your computer. You're going to open up Photoshop and go to File, Import, Video Frames to Layers. When you do this, you don't want to leave the default settings because you'll end up with a lot of layers, like maybe a couple hundred. So you're going to limit to every so many frames, and this is dependent on how long your original clip is. You can also edit this down if you know you just want to use a section of your video. You can use these slider bars. And the video that I'm using has a slow motion effect on it, so I'm not sure how that's going to affect this, but we'll see. I know because of about the length of this video that I want to limit it to every 6 frames. I'm going to click OK, and then it will pick keyframes and create layers out of those frames. When you get all of your layers loaded, you can go through and delete any of them that seem like there's very little movement between the layers, and try to get the layer number down. For every layer you have, you're creating another drawing. So you have to think about how many drawings you'll have patience to make. So now I have 120 layers. That's 120 drawings. That might take a very long time. I can limit my drawing to just the really necessary material. So if I was going to draw this, I don't need to draw all of these background details. I could just focus on the figures and the swimming pool. All right, before I do anything, I first want to crop this down because I don't want all of this extra information. So I'm going to do a preview here, and I want to make sure that I'm not cutting off any important information. I think that maybe if it's about here, I should get most of it in. I'm going to try that. And then I'll click on my first and last layer and maybe a couple in between to make sure that, so that looks all right. I want to see, this is the tedious part, so I need to go through and hide all of these. Actually, I'll do this at the same time. I'm going to look for, as I go through the layers, if there's like really minor change, and if it's only minor change, then I can delete the layer. So between this layer and this layer, there's very little change, so I'm going to delete layer 118. And then do that again. See where there's not much change, and I could even go in and like delete every other layer, but I know like when these kids, the kids are my niece and my son. I know when the kids first jump into the swimming pool, it's good to have a lot of layers in there because there's a lot of movement in a short amount of time. I'm going to click over to one that I've already done this with. So on this animation I went through, I deleted the redundant layers. I got it, it says 118, but there's quite a few layers skipped in here. And I'm going to begin drawing in my animation. So to do that, I went down, I hid all of the layers except for the very first layer. I'll start with layer 1. I created a new layer on top of this, and I used the paintbrush tool on a very small setting, 3-point, to start to trace around the important information. I should mention, I also adjusted my image size. So if you go to image size, my original resolution was only 72 pixels per inch, and the height and width I kept the same. So I moved this up to 150 just so I could do a more detailed drawing. So I would check your image size, and if you have like a very small image, like 72 ppi resolution, change it up to 150. All right, so I took my paintbrush, I went around all the things that were important. If I hide layer 2, you can see what's left. So I don't really care about all this background information. I just want to have the kids jumping into the swimming pool. My idea for this is I might fill some of this with like blocky color, and I might create a water texture in here, or do kind of a watercolor effect. I haven't totally decided yet. Once you get one drawing done, you could do the next layer one of two ways. You could either create another blank layer, This one's going to go on top of the next layer. I'll view this picture now, and I can't see the lines underneath, and then I'd go through and start to trace this one. I could also try to see if, let me delete that layer out, if I duplicate my drawing layer by clicking and dragging onto the new layer button. I have a copy of that first drawing, and just to be less confusing, you could label these. So I'm going to do drawing 1 on this one, and then I'm going to do drawing 2 here. That's my second frame, and I'll end up deleting all of the images later. So I duplicated this, and you can see that maybe some of these lines I could reuse. If you like that kind of wiggly effect, then I would just redraw it. But if I wanted to, you know, I don't know if this is, it's maybe just as time consuming to try to select parts of your drawing and move them. It might be easier just to redraw them. But if I wanted to try to reuse some parts, I could. I don't think that's going to work for this. So you can see if you think that might work for you. Select, deselect. I'm going to trash that layer. And I'm just going to start from scratch again. So I'm going to click on the new layer button and go to my paintbrush tool. It's much easier to draw well when you're zoomed in really close. So zoom in close, use your paintbrush, start to go around. And this does not need to be perfect. You know, if you notice I like wiggled a little bit in my stroke, that's fine. Really what you're looking for is getting that human, really human movement in your animation. It's kind of the point of rotoscope, to get the action to look natural. And I think if some of these little details aren't quite right, that will still work. Okay, so this is the part where you put on some music and zone out and relax and do a whole bunch of drawings. Oops, Command Z if you make a mistake. That's all I'll show you for now. Once we get more into the stylizing of your animation, we can talk about some different options for that. Make sure you save your work to your server file.